NRI Wellness brings you the latest health and nutrition information, creates customized nutrition programs, and walks you through the process to ensure your success.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are in the world. And welcome to the 10 Dimensions of Wellness. I am your host, the owner of NRI Wellness. I am Cammie Red, and we have another spectacular guest on today's show. We have been lining them up back to back. Today's guest is Dr. Ben, and I'm trying to say this right. I said it right on the pre-show, Ben Reuter. See, I did it. And Dr. Ben is going to tell us all about his Move to Live movement, as well as his podcast in Pittsburgh.
Cammie, thanks for having me on. I'm always happy to talk to anybody at any time about movement.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about what it is that you do up in Pittsburgh.
My real job, and it actually starts again in the fall semester tomorrow. My real job is I teach in the Department of Exercise Science and Sports Studies at California University of Pennsylvania. I teach in their online program. Our fall semester starts tomorrow. And if that wasn't enough, I've always been a believer that if you're going to teach, you should practice what you teach. So I do a little bit of personal training on the side because so I can be a practitioner. And then, as you mentioned in the intro, I guess it'll be about 3 years in the middle of next month. I picked up podcasting in addition to that because, teaching and doing a little personal training wasn't enough. And I have to confess, if you had told me 4 years ago that I was going to be reaching out, or people were going to be reaching out to me, and I'd be getting on the internet and talking on a regular basis, I say, yeah, that's really not what I do. But here I am in August of 2020, and yeah, I'm a podcaster promoting the ethos movement as a lifestyle, not just an activity.
Yeah. All right. So tell us a little bit about the program. Tell us about what it is that you do, your personal training services, and how you coach people through movement as a lifestyle.
Well, it's actually, not always, since I've gotten my doctorate, I've always done some personal training. And I guess it was about 2013 or 2014. I have somebody who has an eye that's very, very nearsighted. And all my life, they've said, at some point, you're probably going to detach your retina. Don't worry about it. You'll know when you do it because there'll be like a black sheet over part of your vision. And the good thing is this is an eye I don't see very well out of because it's extremely nearsighted. And lo and behold, I was out walking my dogs, and you'll see as we talk over the next few minutes, that seems to be a pattern in my life, doing things with my dogs outside. I noticed kind of a dark screen across my eye, and I was like, oh, my hat must have fallen down. It's like, oh no. And you do the testing with the finger. For anybody who's ever had a retinal problem before, it's like, okay. So I call my eye doctor, and the eye doctor says you need to go see this eye surgeon. And that started about a 4-year saga of about 9 different surgeries and 15 procedures. The retina kept tearing in new places. So as the surgeon described it to me, he said, look, it's a physics problem. We tear it in one place. It puts stress on it in another place. Now, knock on wood, and I'm knocking on my head if you're not doing this on video, it's been pretty stable for 2 years. I still see him for checkups every 3 months just to make sure. But what I took for granted before that is, if I wanted to go out for a run, if I wanted to go for a bike, if I wanted to walk my dogs, it's like, oh, I'm going to do that. Movement just was something that I took for granted. And suddenly, because when you have retinal repairs and surgeries, sometimes they put air bubbles in to push against the retina. And there are periods of time where you have to hold the position. I remember 21 or 22 hours having to lie on my stomach or my side. And then even as it started to get better and the procedures were a little less, you have to lie in one position. My doctor is a cyclist, so he was very good. He'd say, well, I don't want you to run because of the pounding. You can walk, you can ride the trainer, but I don't want you to ride outside in case you fall off your bike. And it just all of a sudden, something that I took for granted was something that really I realized was a gift that really helped my mental well-being, my physical well-being. And in that same time period, one of my dogs that unfortunately I've since lost about 17 or 18 months ago, she developed idiopathic epilepsy, where she had uncontrolled seizures. And I remember asking the dog's neurosurgeon, yes, my dog had a neurosurgeon, what can she do? And she said, whatever she wants to do, she can do. So I knew that she loved being in the woods. I knew that she loved going for walks with my other dog and running when she was able. So I kind of made it a priority that whenever it was possible, I was going to take my dog for a walk and give her just the best quality of life possible, which on the one hand sounds, wow, that must be a great dog owner. But the other hand, for me, just to watch a dog run around on a leash and to have fun and to be outside and be able to think was just, as I said earlier, really helps my physical wellness, my mental wellness.
It was therapeutic for you.
It was. We interviewed for one of my podcasts here in Pittsburgh a guy who does Tai Chi and meditation, who is a very interesting guy, Don Drolet, standing crane Tai Chi. And I said to Don, I said, I don't meditate. It's like if you ask me to sit in a room and concentrate, it's like, I don't do that. I go out in the woods. He goes, well, that's your form of meditation. That's what, you may not be doing what I'm saying is meditation, but that's meditation. And it was
when you're out in the woods, you're connecting with nature. You're one with everything around you. Even if you're just watching the dogs play off leash, that is your form of meditation, your form of stillness.
It's kind of like it centers you. And I remember, I could tell you the spot where I was with my dogs. I was listening to podcasts, and somebody said, some of the people out there doing the best things, you never hear about them because they don't work on their social media presence. They just work on whatever it is they do. And it's like, okay, I know some people and I'm curious. I'm going to start a podcast. And the ethos or the idea of movement as a lifestyle, not just an activity, it just kind of fell into as I started interviewing more and more people, because I realized it didn't matter whether they were somebody who, was a hardcore athlete and running marathons or cycling across the country, or it was we interviewed somebody, she says, I don't know if I'm really an athlete. I said, well, what do you do? It's like, well, I dance 4 or 5 times a month and I walk on the treadmill every day. Or if I don't walk on the treadmill, I go swimming. And it's like, yes, you are an athlete.
You are an athlete.
you are a mover. And it kind of, the more people you interview, the more people you see, those people who incorporate some sort of movement into their life on a regular basis and don't look at it as a chore or a duty, but rather something that they look forward to and enjoy. And it's different for every person. Those are the people who understand movement as a lifestyle, not just an activity. And if I could share one of my clients who unfortunately is no longer with us.
No. Before you move on, I want you to actually repeat what you said again. It's key. The reason why it's key is I'm a nutritionist and that's what I do. So I help people with food. That's my part in wellness. But what I also have to stress to a lot of my clients and a lot of my patients is, yes, we're changing your diet, but movement and activity are what assists you throughout this entire process. So yes, we're going to eat right, but I'm going to also get you to move too. Like I literally just got I'm getting my certification in yoga just to prove that point to my clients. Even the smallest amount of movement can help you.
Exactly. And it's different for everybody, and it differs on where you are in life and what your other responsibilities are, but some sort of movement on the regular basis. And one of the questions people always ask, because I am in the exercise science field, well, how much movement do I need? And I can spout out the American College of Sports Medicine guidelines for resistance training, for cardiorespiratory fitness, et cetera. But at the end of the day, if you look at it, we've got about 20 to 25% of Americans who do absolutely no regular movement. So before we start saying and pushing ACSM guidelines or other guidelines, which are phenomenal, we need to figure out,
get them moving.
How do we get somebody to move more? If it's as simple as saying, I'm going to take a 10-minute walk 3 days a week, and before that they were doing nothing, that's a big progress.
Yeah. What I've been doing in that line is, like I said about yoga earlier, is I've been showing people subtle movement. It doesn't have to be major movement, especially I work with a lot of older senior people. So subtle movement, even if it's just standing and walking in place, just getting those that movement or getting that type of function going so that you can move forward and walk that, around the block once or twice. So
that's exactly right. And if you see me moving around because we're doing this interview on Zoom, I'm at a standing desk and I'm actually on a wobble board too.
oh, cool. So you're moving while we're talking.
I'm moving. It's a wobble board that has 4 little air balls at each corner. It's called a Ponaola board. And the reason I switched to this versus what most people think of as a typical wobble board that they may use in physical therapy or their kids may use is because my dog that I mentioned with epilepsy used to like to lie underneath my feet, and I didn't want to squeeze her nose or get her paws. So I switched to this little wobble thing, and I thought would sometimes sit down. But even if I'm just sitting here, if I'm on a boring conference call, this is not a boring conference call. I can kind of bounce around, and it's kind of like walking on air.
But it keeps your brain functioning as well. So you don't get bored, you don't get sleepy, you don't really fall asleep or fall into that lull. You're actually in constant movement, which is constant activity. So your brain is just like exercising all the time.
And I can tell you all of my useful ideas and some of my not useful ideas have happened when I'm moving, whether I'm riding my bike, running, or walking with my dogs. It's like constantly, as you said, it's my centering, it's my meditation, but it's also the chance that I can kind of, sometimes things just pop into your mind, or you put things together that you hadn't thought of before. It's like, ooh, this would be a really good idea. Or, ooh, I'd like to contact this person to be on my podcast, or here's an idea for a movement tip lifestyle hack video.
Oh, see, cool. That's right. Activity leads to brain function.
And I think it's especially important. I was talking to somebody a few days ago, and one of the things with COVID, the pandemic, a lot of middle schools, grade schools, and high schools are doing virtual or online classes because they don't feel it's safe to go in the classroom. So they're doing science classes, math classes, reading classes. Very few.
They cut out activity.
They cut out. There's a lady I know who's a second grade teacher, and she's working, and her husband is a physical education teacher, and it's like, well, they've got them doing stuff around the school. If you think about what happened when the pandemic hit and all the gyms closed down, and people said, well, what do I do? How do I move? And I'm thinking, I'm fortunate enough that I live on 4 acres. I've built mountain bike and walking trails. My girlfriend and I just spent time building a teeter-totter this afternoon for the dogs and to ride our bikes over. But so many people have become so organized in their movement. I got to go to the gym, or I got to take this class. They forget that, walking, doing yoga in between commercials, if you're watching your favorite football team playing, for the elderly people that you work with, some of the, not just elderly people, but some people love to garden. When the pandemic first hit, it's like, okay, I'm finally going to organize my garage. And I bought these fancy shelves so I could actually get everything up. And I turned my GPS watch on, and over the course of 2.5 hours of organizing my garage, I walked over 2 miles. So people are forgetting, even if it doesn't officially fall under a air quotes workout or going to the gym, it can still be movement. And at the end of the day, if your goal is to get more movement into your life, you don't have to go to a gym, or you don't have to have a yoga instructor like you saying, do this, do that. There are so many things you can do on your own.
And then let's not forget the wealth of videos that's on YouTube that actually show you how to do a workout at home, utilizing the normal everyday things that you have in your house. So
exactly.
We literally live in a no excuse type of society now, where you really have no excuse for why you can't move.
Mm-hmm. No, I would agree, and I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, there are so many videos out there, and I mean, I know some things like Peloton are beyond the ability of some people to afford, but you hit it on YouTube. I mean, there are phenomenal mat Pilates exercises, there are phenomenal resistance training exercises, there are phenomenal yoga, and on and on and on.
I've taken Tai Chi on YouTube. I've taken Qigong. I've taken Pilates. I take yoga. I go to different yoga teachers' YouTube pages. I have done personal training workouts. What is it? Zoom. The Move
Zoom,
Dance Fitness.
Zumba.
Zumba. I've done that on YouTube. So again, and I've done bar, the ballet movements. So those are all different variations of movement, variations of activity, and they're free right there on YouTube.
And you're able to try a variety of things, because I know one of the biggest things is if you maybe are not a regular exerciser, or maybe you have body image problems, or you're worried about never having exercise, it really is intimidating to walk into a gym facility or to walk into a class, even if you're taking it one-on-one. And now you're able to try it out. And like, you know, you mentioned yoga, and it's like one of my ideas of the 7th level of hell for me is to go into a yoga class. But that doesn't mean yoga is bad. It just means for me, I've tried it and it's not for me. On the other hand, I took a Qigong class from this gentleman that I mentioned, Don Drolet, about 1.5 years ago. And I thought it was like, yeah, I'm just going to go because he invited me and I really like him and respect him. And I really enjoyed it. And I was the youngest person in there by at least 45 years.
Yeah. And that's what, like, movement, when I say it's very simple, yoga is, it can be hard or it can be super easy. As a matter of fact, this morning I taught a chair yoga class. So that's not getting out of your that's literally utilizing the chair to stretch and do whatever you have to do. So again, subtle movement, but there is some movement as long as you do something.
Yeah. And I mean, there are some people with their businesses, with their travel, you know, it may be, okay, I'm on a Zoom call. Well, I'm just going to, hide the camera and I'm going to do some of those yoga poses, or I'm going to do some gentle stretches. You're still engaged, but you don't get one of those feelings where, you know, you've been sitting and not moving for hours and you get up and you're like, ooh, this is not going to be good.
Yep. And the crazy part about it is most people don't realize that when you sit and rise quickly, that actually affects your blood pressure. So sometimes people who have been sitting for an extended period of time, when you do go to jump up and rise up, you feel that immediate lightheadedness. Sometimes you have to sit back down to recenter yourself just to keep moving.
Good genetics on my part. My blood pressure ranges from 90 to 100/60. And if I'm not thinking, and if I pop up, I'm one of those people who like grabs, it's like, okay, maybe this was a little fast.
Yeah. So see, that's also what we have to pay attention to as well. Even like, I find myself in the grocery store doing calf lifts while I'm waiting in line. Simple movements.
I mentioned a few minutes ago that I wanted to tell the story of one of my former clients who has since passed on from cancer. But it was when I was teaching Pilates, and he came to me because he had a number of herniated discs in his low back. And the surgeon said, well, you know, you're just not a surgical candidate because you don't have this debilitating pain. And he was a big golfer. He wanted to golf. So we worked with him. And I knew that he was I had him hooked when he said, you know, I was standing in the grocery store and I was watching somebody stand in front of me. And it's like, you know, I just wanted to tap him on the shoulder and said, hey, you know, if you just change the way you stood just this way, it would be a little bit less painful. But the great thing, and I think this is something that makes it so important, because so many people say, well, I don't have time to move now. You know, I'll do it when the kids are out of school, or I'll do it when my job eases up, or I'll do it, you know, when whatever it is. There's always an excuse. And this particular client, you know, he golfed, he did hiking with his wife, and he came to me at Pilates, which was essentially personal training, working on his core, working on his mobility, because he was a retired executive who had spent years and years sitting at a desk. So he really bought into it because he wanted to move. And unfortunately, he was diagnosed with lung cancer. And I still remember this. You know, I remember talking to him, and he said, you know, it's going to kill me, but I'm going to do as much as I can to do the things that I want to do. And you know, obviously I'm going to fight it. And I know one of the things he did is he went skiing out west every year. He'd done it for 30 some years, very, very early in the season. It was kind of like you had mentioned, me being in the woods. For him, going to the mountains, that was kind of his centering for the year. You know, he could just be him. And I still remember the two memories that I'm always going to have of this gentleman is he sent me a picture the year after he was diagnosed. I mean, he was having treatment at the top of one of the mountains that I can't remember if it was Vail or Aspen. There was nobody on the mountain, and there was just a wide open mountain that he got to ski down.
Wow.
And that was, I was like, wow, that's really cool. And then the second thing that was, unfortunately, because of the chemo and because of the radiation, he had a stroke and ended up in hospice, and then had a second stroke, and that's what ultimately killed him. But between his first and second stroke, his wife was able to take a picture of him walking down the walking down the hallway of the hospice, pushing his young grandson in a stroller, using the stroller as a walker. And I remember when she showed me this video, because I worked with his wife a little bit. I mean, my thought was, this kid has absolutely no memory of who his grandfather is. I mean, it's been 7 or 8 years now. So the grandchild is 7 or 8 years old, has no idea who his grandfather was. But his mom is going to be able to pull out the video of her dad and say, look what dad was able to do. And, it's kind of the wonders of technology, but it's also, this is somebody who made it a commitment that I'm going to stay moving. And he was literally able to move, maybe not as much as he wanted to, but to be functional and do many of the things he wanted to do, literally until the day before he died.
Right. Wow.
I mean, on the one hand, you go, that's macabre. On the other hand, maybe it's because I'm a little bit older. I'm going, that's absolutely, pardon the language, effing phenomenal.
Yeah, it is. It is. It really is.
If you want to be seen, you have to stop being invisible to opportunity. I'm Kay Henry, licensed mental health counselor and host of Black Therapy Uncensored. Your prescription of positivity starts here.
So, Dr. Bill, tell me a little bit about you, your personal journey to fitness. I know we talked a little bit about it earlier, but what makes you feel inspired or like your best self?
I think the best way to start answering that question is to tell you a little story. I was kind of a non-traditional doctoral student. I didn't start my PhD studies until I was, gasped, 27 or 28. On the other hand, for your listeners who are going, well, that's nothing. My dad started law school at 74. So, it's all about a matter of perception.
Your father started law school at 74. Now, has he graduated? Is he practicing? Or?
Oh yeah, no, he graduated. He now works. He is a part-time public defender in Brown County, Indiana, which is about 16 miles from Bloomington, where Indiana University is.
Wow.
So now my grandfather was also an attorney, and he practiced at least part-time until he was 88 or 90. So I guess it's kind of built in my genes that there is retirement, but you still do things. But getting back to your question, as far as, what makes me feel inspired, I remember there's a gentleman who, one of my first jobs out of grad school, he gave me the opportunity to do some professional writing with him. And I really look at him as a mentor. I've always described him, he grew up in Georgia. I met him when I was working in Lexington, Kentucky. I describe him in the absolute most positive way as a Southern gentleman, because this particular man is, you always knew when you ask him about somebody. Like if you'd say, what do you think of Cammie? And if he said, Cammie's good people, you'd know Cammie was a good person to get involved with. On the other hand, if you'd say, oh yeah, I know Cammie, you'd go, oh, wait, little light bulbs going on, something's a warning. And I didn't find this out until very close to the completion of my doctoral studies, but he told my major advisor, he goes, hey, if Ben is ever really a pain in the butt to deal with or a jerk, send him out for a run, because if he's worked out on a regular basis, if he's moved on a regular basis, he's just so much easier to get along with. So I think my creative juices, I'll answer this in two ways. My creative juices flow is if I'm able to kind of get my angst out and move on a regular basis. And then I think my creativity, or what inspires me, is when I'm in a room or when I interact with people, and I think I'm continually thinking, I didn't know that, or boy, I must be a dumb idiot because I wasn't thinking that way. So I always want to be the person who's asking the questions. And I mean, a friend of mine used to call me the 5-year-old, because I constantly, she'd want me to do something and I'd constantly ask questions about it. So I think I think what inspires me is just innate curiosity. It's like, no matter what I know, I always want to learn more about something if I'm interested in, or if I'm not interested in it, you're pretty much going to know it.
Okay. So your life, and I'm going to say this, you've probably just been built to move. Your whole entire body, your creative process, your brain, it all is functioning based on the movement that you supply to your body. So movement actually inspires you.
It does. And I mean, I'm 52. I probably, my dad has always said, if you were going to high school and middle school and grade school now, they define you as hyperactive and want to put you on Ritalin. I don't think that it's a hyperactive. It's like, if I'm interested, I can concentrate. But if I'm not interested, I'm the first person that switch is going to click off. And unfortunately, it's getting better. My presentation maybe shows that you're going to know that I'm not interested, because I'm going to be the eye rolling, or, maybe I shouldn't say this in public, but I think everybody does this. One of these saving graces that helps with presentations when you're at meetings and things is the ability to use your computer and kind of multitask.
Oh, absolutely. You and I both, or our phones now.
Or
Yes.
phones. Yes.
Phones. Because even if I have my laptop in front of me, I make myself appear to be busy. So I probably will do like, I'll look like I'm on my computer, and then I'm checking my phone, and I'm doing everything to stay awake because I'm uninterested in what the presentation is about.
Well, good.
So
I'm not alone.
Yeah, you are not alone in this one. So let me ask you some things again about your private practice. Tell me about a time that a client touched your heart and actually changed the way you practice. Now, I know we just left off and we talked about the client who moved until the day before he died, but have there been other clients like that for you?
Yeah, I've got one current who is by training an electrical engineer, and he thinks very systematically. And this may not be exactly what you're looking for, but I remember when I first started working with him, I just mentioned something in passing, a biomechanical kinesiological principle called the Serape effect, which just has to do with rotation in the body. And I just kind of said, oh yeah, this is an example of something. Just kind of threw it off not really threw it off, but just said it. And because of his curiosity as a engineer, he went out and he found the peer-reviewed literature, and he came back. And the next session, he starts asking me these questions and really diving me back into my biomechanics classes. And I remember thinking, it's like, oh, I need to be a little more careful about what I say, or if I say it, make sure I'm ready to back it up. And I've also learned. You know
what? That's great, because.
Oh no, I love it. I love it. I love when it does it.
Like, that's a client that's actually challenging you to think about how you speak in your languaging and what you put out there, because now he's so anxious to learn more about what it is that you said that he's actually challenging you to teach him more.
And it's actually made it so I tell people, and I think it's great. In our first segment, you said when I started to tell a story, I said, no, I want to touch on this first. I tell people when I'm teaching, or if I'm giving a presentation, it's like, look, if you have a question, break in the middle of it and ask me, because a lot of the stuff I'm saying, I'm not just letting it fly, but I mean, my mind's going. And if you say, hey, 10 minutes ago you mentioned, I may be like, huh? I don't remember. So it's like, if I say something and it's not clear, you want to touch on it, it's like, pop up, interrupt, and say it, and let's talk about it then, because I'll remember that. I mean, I think probably the biggest thing I've realized just with all the clients is I'm best with, and this is where I'm fortunate that, I do multiple things, and I don't only personal train. The more motivated you are, the more decided you are, the more excited I am to teach you. And I guess that's kind of a blessing and a curse, because I firmly believe that, if you go back to those basic psychology classes, internal and external locus of control, those people who have that internal locus of control, it's like, those are the ones. It doesn't matter whether they make a lot of money or they become famous. Those are the ones that I've seen in my limited experience. Those are the ones who have the happiest life, because, like, look, this is who I am. This is what I do.
This is what I do. This is me. Accept it. I'm at peace with it. You need to be at peace with it too.
And I think we've done a bad job with exercise, because, I mean, I like to say the great thing about social media is there's so much information and so many pictures and videos out there. The bad thing about social media is there's so many great pictures, or there's so many pictures and there's so much information out there.
There's so
And if you're not experienced and knowledgeable, and you're not critical, the bright, shiny, happy man or woman is the one you're going to go, ooh, that's the expert. And that may not be the expert. They may just be the influencer. So I think probably
And you are absolutely right. I actually had that discussion with my business partner where, me doing this platform, I do it as an expert. I don't really get out there and flout as an influencer, but there are influencers who take the information that we put up there and they take it back to their audience and put it out there so their audience listens to it. But the thing about it is, I'm constantly telling my patients, there's so much research out there. You literally have to take what's for you and leave the rest behind, because if you don't, you could be so overwhelmed with the amount of information, and there's always going to be a pro and a con to every situation.
And I think this is a perfect time without any politics involved. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and it's become politicized. And I think one of the things that's helped me is there is a gentleman who is out there named Michael Osterholm, who has a podcast out of University of Minnesota. And his whole thing when he has talked about it, he's an epidemiologist, is he said, look, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you what I know and what I don't know, and based on my experience. And not getting any money, not getting promoted, but the Osterholm update is one of those things that over the last 6 months ago, everything that I've listened to, or most of the things, like, oh, well, that's actually happened. So, you see this stuff in the media, you see the influencers like, oh, well, here's you use this fancy spray and you're not going to get the disease or the virus. It's like, I wait till Dr. Osterholm comes up with the next update, and I listen to it. And it's like, okay, so we don't know this, we don't know this, we know that. It's like, okay. And it kind of, for me, it's a little bit calming, because, here's somebody who has decades of experience. He's worked with previous pandemics, and he's like, look, I have no politics in this. He's like, I've helped both sides of the aisle. I've worked in multiple administrations. This is what I do. This is my career. I'm going to tell you what I know. I'm going to tell you what I don't know. And I think the biggest thing, whether it's in whatever it is the fear of people to say, I don't know.
Yeah,
and
I think that's what has been the biggest failure of this entire situation, country-wise, is people not wanting to be authentic and saying, "Listen, we just don't know right now."
And I mean, it's there in movement. There are some people, and I've had the opportunity with my one podcast, Moving to Live, to interview. There are people who, their area of expertise is they train personal trainers how to work with people who have cancer or cancer survivors. There are other people who work only with people who are quadriplegics or paraplegics. And I think the most authentic thing, and the thing that most impresses me about somebody, is when the person says, I don't know, or this is outside of my scope. And to go back to with my eye problems, as I mentioned, 15 plus procedures somewhere in the office. I still remember one of them where my surgeon said, look, we need to do this procedure today. He said, what's your schedule like? I said, well, if we need to do it today, my schedule's wide open. And he said, well, I do this procedure as part of my practice. Let me see if my colleague's here, because quite honestly, he's better at it than I am. And if he's willing to do it, I'll let him do it. And, if you're not confident in who you are and what you know, you wouldn't say that. And when he said that, it wasn't like, oh my God, this guy's horrible, I'm going to dump him. It's like, wow, I really appreciate this. And I mean, it gave me even more confidence that this was somebody who
you could trust. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, confident. And I think, whether it's movement or whatever it is, it's okay to say, I don't know, or wow, that's really outside my area of expertise. And I think the more I do the podcasting and the more I promote movement as a lifestyle, I mean, some of the people I've interviewed, number one, they really are, you never would have run across them because they have no social media presence. They just do what they do. And, if I can sing their praises and promote what they do and help them, I'm more than willing. But number two, those are the people that you kind of put in your virtual Rolodex. It's like, oh man, I don't know this. Who can I recommend? And that's the thing where your client says, I actually had an experience with one of my clients, and one of my clients texted me and said, hey, do you have any recommendations for somebody who does this? And because I had done the podcast, it's like, I know just the person you need to contact.
Yes. See, I have some experience in that. You speaking to my soul now. Prior, and I keep harping on this, and I'm sorry, but prior to me becoming a yoga teacher, I was actually hiring personal trainers and other people to do physical activities with my clients, because I'm one of those that I try to stay in my lane. So if it's outside of my purview, I don't want to, I would rather you get the right information than me telling you something wrong that's going to harm you in the long run. Mm-hmm. So it was actually one of the personal trainers that I had hired over a number of years who turned me on to the class to become a certified yoga teacher. And she said, I think this is easy enough for you to learn and for you to incorporate into your practice in what you do so that you can teach your clients instead of having to hire people to do it for you.
And also by taking the class, now you've increased the sensitivity of your BS meter. So if you are interviewing somebody or hiring somebody for something, yes, the little radar is going to go, wait a second, this doesn't sound exactly right.
Yeah. You're absolutely right about that. We find ourselves in situations every day where you're listening to people talk and you're like, wait a minute. No. So no, but we have to be more authentic in this country. Tell me, what do you think? There's something about you that people seem to misunderstand.
Believe it or not, I'm an introvert.
You know what? I hate to interject. I believe you. You want to know why? I'm one as well.
So I mean, one of the things, like, to do this, not a big deal. If you said, hey, you're speaking in front of 1,000 people tomorrow, not a big deal. But the small, learning to small talk and things like that. So the appearance is, oh, wow, he's standoffish or he's stuck up. It's like, probably more likely, no, he's scared out of his mind. And I'll be honest, I mean, in no way am I, wow, this is really great that I got to have 9 surgeries and 15 procedures.
Right.
But it kind of was a blessing in disguise, because it was kind of like, you know what? People would always say, wow, you're handling it so well. I'm like, well, what can I do? And it really helped me center in and realize, there are people in my life, and I think in my podcast, I try to do that. And I show that with the people that I interview, people that I look at as mentors or people that I respect. And it's like, I want them to be able to look at the podcast and go, wow, he's interviewing some really cool people. So I think, kind of a roundabout way to your answer, people tend to think if they first meet me that I'm quiet, that I'm stuck up. It's like, no, if I don't have anything to say, I'm just going to be there and listen.
Yeah, you're just an observer. You just sit quietly and observe what's going on in the area. I'm there with you. I totally understand that. We are those people, but we are also those people that are learners and thinkers. And when we're observing, it's not and what I tell people, it's not that I'm standoffish and quiet. It's just that I'm standing back, looking at the room, getting a feel for the room, trying to understand, who, might be the people that I need to interact with if I do decide to interact, or, how easy this process is going to be for me.
I hear you.
I am totally there with you.
This is a 2-second nutrition tip. Today's tip is develop at least one new stress reliever. Instead of a bowl of ice cream or an alcoholic drink, treat yourself to a bowl of tasty exotic fruit, or take a long walk someplace pretty, like the beach, or go meditate in the forest. Enjoy an afternoon out with your best friend or lover. Let me know how it goes. This has been a 2-second nutrition tip. NRI Wellness. We bring you the latest in health and nutrition information, create customized nutrition programs, and walk you through the process to ensure your success.
Now, Dr. Ben, tell me what some of the biggest challenges you've had with wellness and coaching and getting people to move, and how you actually overcame all of that.
Oh, I would say, first of all, I probably haven't overcome it. It's a constant battle.
Yes.
As you've mentioned in previous segments, you said one of the things, oh, well, you clearly are a mover. And I think to me, it's like the idea of regularly moving and it being a regular part of my life. It's just like, I grew up on a farm. When I was in middle school, my dad said, he said, you can play one of the three sports. This was a very small rural area. So it wasn't that I was very good. And, because it was summer, I said, well, I'm going to play soccer. And about halfway through the year, he said, or season, he said, well, it's a small school. You need to support your classmates. You should play basketball. So I played basketball. Partway through basketball season, it's like, well, you should really play baseball too if you're going to do all three. And it really, so I on the one hand, I had the blessing of not being very good and being able to play these organized sports. And I was just, I was typically very active. And to me, when I work with people who, in some cases, are coming to a personal trainer, and they aren't movers, they aren't lifetime movers, and they're kind of, there are some people who are not lifetime movers, and they say, "Oh, I need to make a complete change," and they're motivated to do it. I have a hard time motivating people who aren't motivated. If they're there and saying, "Hey, I'm here, work with me, motivate me," I'm probably not going to be very good at that. And I think that's a limitation for me. I think I'm probably better than I was 5 years ago, but I think I'm always going to struggle, and I'm going to be at least internally going, how can you not be excited about this? I mean, how can you not find something that you enjoy to do? So
Yes, that's because movement makes you excited.
it does. And I mean, one of the things, I think the people that I've had long-term relationships with, I've got a good friend who was my training partner when I was in doctoral studies in Auburn. I graduated in '99. He was a psych professor. He's retired out to Colorado.
You went to Auburn University?
War Damn Eagle.
My father is Auburn University alum. He was actually one of the first Black basketball players for Auburn University.
Really?
Yep.
I had a couple of basketball players. I taught first aid and CPR, and also weight training as a graduate teaching assistant. I had a couple of basketball players, and people always say, what were the worst athletes to deal with and the best athletes? And by far, and it probably had something to do with the coaching, the basketball players were the best, because you could joke around with them. And they would come in and they would say the first day of class, here's my schedule. These are the days that we're missing. And coach says, I'm supposed to find out, what can I do, or what do I need to do? But my buddy was a psych professor, and we both like to move. We did a lot of running, biking. We trained for triathlons together, have stayed in contact, actually interviewed him for my podcast, because his area of expertise is, what makes a master teacher. And I don't care if you're in the university setting or you're talking to people about wellness, you are teaching. Physicians are teaching. And a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to visit him and his wife out in Salida, Colorado. And, people think they go on vacation, they don't do anything. Well, over the course of 4 or 5 days, I think we did 20 or 24 hours of exercise, hiking and biking. And just because, the joke was at Auburn, when he was training for an Ironman, his wife would say, I think you spend more time with Ben than I do, because we bike 8 or 10 hours a week. And I realized, as I'm huffing and puffing behind him, climbing a mountain on the bike, because it's an elevation, it's like, other than where we are, this is exactly what I was doing, 20 years ago. It feels exactly the same. The conversations are the same, but they're really, he went to BYU. So, how many people who are not Mormon learned about the Mormon church? Because when you're going for a 6-hour bike ride, he talked about his experiences going to BYU. And to me, it's like, am I ever going to use that? No. But to me, it was like, okay, it's different. It's interesting. It's fascinating. Just along those same ways, I think that will probably make me a better teacher, a better person for motivating people. I was at a conference and went to dinner, and the gentleman across from me taught at Liberty University, which is an evangelical Christian school. And I picked his brain for the entire dinner. I'm just asking him questions about what it's like. And And he's, I said, if you're sick of me asking this, just say, shut up. He goes, no, I'm always happy to talk about it. And then I think this is especially interesting in this time with the protests and the Black Lives Matter, is I've just fallen into conversations 2 or 3 times a week with my FedEx delivery guy, who is, as he said, he grew up in the hood of Pittsburgh. And it's just fascinating. It's he calls me Benjamin X as a joke. But it's on the one hand, you can get on the internet and you can listen to people what do, but to actually talk to people and quite honestly, I never would have talked to him other than to say, hey, how you doing? Thanks for the package. Other than the fact that he delivered something that was heavy. And he said, what the heck is this? And we just got to talking. And, if I'm his last run of the day, we'll sit there and we'll talk for, 45 minutes. So I think I've gone on a tangent and forgotten what your question was, but I think just
no. We were actually talking about your biggest challenges, but you were telling me about your friend in Colorado and how you guys were just riding and he'd be telling you all these stories and you're getting all of this information while you're moving, and how cool it was that, in Pittsburgh now with all of everything going on.
To consolidate it, I think my biggest frustration, and I guess telling the stories has helped it. My biggest frustration is people who aren't excited. It's like, you may not be a regular exerciser, you may not be a regular mover, but be excited about it. I mean, my joke with people say, well, what's your goal? It's like, I want to live to be 104. And they look at me and they go, why? Because there's like so many things I want to do.
Before I reach that age. But let's circle back. Let's talk about your relationship now. Are you inspiring your FedEx driver? Are you talking to him about movement and how he can incorporate? You know what?
I'm fortunate in that instance. It's I mean maybe he just detected because he saw the bikes in my garage. But he's a former college football player. He
awesome.
He lifts weights. Although he says right now his girlfriend won't let him lift weights because go to the gym to lift things. And I think it, but I mean, you can tell he's excited about lifting weights and that's what he likes to do. And
it's a part of his regular workout. It's a part of his regular routine. It's the buildup of endorphins in him. It keeps him happy as well.
Yeah. And I can tell you it's a regular part of his routine because he's a big guy and I'm not a big guy, but I think to consolidate it is that the biggest frustration or challenge is people who just are not excited.
And how do we get people more excited about movement like that? Believe it or not, that's been my whole journey through this as well, is to how do we make people more excited about wellness? And it's not just movement, it's eating right, it's breathing the right air, it's listening to the right things, it's thinking the right things. Like, how do we get people excited about that? And I know it literally starts with movement. So how do we get people excited about movement?
I mean, I think one of the best ways it is, and it doesn't happen for everybody, is if your parents move. I mean, they may not be athletes, but if mom and dad are always on the move, they're gardening, they're doing projects, they're all, they're not just sitting in front of the idiot box, the television or the computer, they're always moving, doing things. I think in schools, giving people the opportunity, and also in boys and girls clubs and YMCAs and YWCAs, having the opportunity to do a variety of movements. So much with youth is youth sports where it's organized. And if you're not a good athlete, or maybe you're somebody who's a late bloomer, there's some men and some women who are not going to be good until they hit puberty. And by that time, if you know anything about youth sports, it's like, well, you're 13 years old. It's too late for you to start playing.
It's too late.
Which is like, no, that's when it should maybe start. So,
and I was going to say, but on the flip side, that's probably the best thing, because that's when you're entering high school as well. So perhaps getting into high school athletics, as opposed to having what I like to call a long-term, lifelong career in sports for kids.
Which is done when you're 16 and you realize, oh, I'm not good enough to play in college.
Yeah.
I think having the opportunity to do a variety of movement activities, because just you can tell when you or I have been talking, it's like if you said, Ben, we're doing a yoga class 3 times a week, I can convince you that I would make every excuse in the world not to go, because I know that's not for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the other hand, if I said, hey, Cammy, we're getting together and we're going to do a 60-mile bike ride 3 times a week, I don't know for sure, but I suspect you'd be saying, yeah, I got to do this and I got to do that.
I'm going to say, you know what, Ben, I'm going to pass this week.
But I'll see you next. So I think one of the things is, and this is I think, you know, I was a physical education major in undergrad where I took activities classes, and I was always an active kid and had a good physical education program in high school and middle school, having the opportunity to try different things. And I think that to some extent for people, there's a fear of being seen as being different or not doing the status quo. I think a great example of that, we interviewed for my local podcast, FitLab Pittsburgh. I actually saw an article in the Wall Street Journal 3 or 4 years ago about a cardiologist, a cardiac researcher who used a pogo stick because he was diagnosed with osteopenia. So 3 or 4 times a day when he was writing, doing research, he'd go out in his cul-de-sac and he'd bounce up and down on this air power or this pogo stick that was used compressed air.
Now, is this a real pogo stick, like an old time pogo stick?
No.
They've reinvented the pogo stick.
You pump it up with a bicycle pump, and depending on how much resistance. So let me tell you the best case or worst case scenario with this. The world record for the high jump with this pogo stick is over 10 feet. So the rule for this is you can jump off something to land on the ground. You can jump over 10 feet, and then you have to bounce 3 times. Anyways, it just so happens the company that does, like if you've been to a basketball game or a volleyball game, and at halftime, they have the people who come out and do tricks like they dunk basketballs.
Yep.
Well, they do. This is a company that does pogo things. So they show up at things. And it happens to be based here in Pittsburgh. We interview the guy. I walk in there, I see the pogo stick, and of course, you know, I'm the 51-year-old geek, and I'm going, can I try this thing? It's like, sure. So I try it. It's like, can you order one of these for me? So I have this pogo stick that I pump up, and, you know, periodically I go out on my patio or I go in the garage, which has a high ceiling. And everybody, when I tell them this and I tell them, you know, the world record is 10 feet, they're like, you're not going to do that. It's like, no, I just want to bounce up and down. I mean, it's just different. Like, it's fun.
I'm literally thinking, why don't they have these at, you know, gyms or at...
when we interviewed him, I'm going, why is this not in fitness facilities as far as gym class? So to get people more involved with movement, I think you have to. Interviewed a lady who works for the Pennsylvania Special Olympics just last week. She's a lifetime mover, always looking for different things. She took goat yoga. You take yoga with, I mean,
I have seen it. I've seen videos of it. My instructor who is certifying me actually was showing us these videos so that we could understand that there are various types of yoga that we could teach.
There is doga. Yeah. My first dog that I have, I took her.
I was going to say there's pet yoga where you go with your dog.
I went with my dog. So I think one of the things is, people have taken movement so seriously. And yes, there are times to be serious, but let's face it, it should be fun. I mean, and my girlfriend and I, who are doing a lot of cycling this summer, she's gotten into cycling, and we have a lot of rails to trails here in the Pittsburgh area. And both of us have remarked how many people, when they're out biking or running, they don't look happy. You know, and if you go to the gym, there's a lot of people, you know, they're on the treadmill.
Why is that? It's like their face is full of tension. And you're like, dude, you should be happy.
And I mean, it's like, amazing when you, I mean, think of a little kid, you know, when they're out on their bike or when they're running. It's like, this is great.
Yeah, we would run like it was free, and we would smile and be extremely happy. I have no clue what, you know what they say, when we turn into adults, we lose the fun of everything because we start taking the world so seriously. We've got to stop doing that because we are literally killing our own joy.
Mm-hmm. And I think you hit a couple of segments ago when you mentioned with my time in the woods. I mean, the Japanese have talked about forest bathing, and there are
Yes.
studies that being outside, having fun, having a pet, having a workout partner who
Yeah.
holds you accountable. Or, I mean, I can tell you with my friend that I mentioned, you know, some of the great conversations just walking or jogging or riding the bike. One of the physicians here in Pittsburgh that I interviewed, his mentor taught him in his residency, if you have serious health problems or you're talking to a physician, the kind of the white coat stress, you go into a doctor, he said
Yeah.
sometimes he takes his patients for a walk around the block. This is what his mentor taught him.
Yeah.
There's something about moving and having a conversation that you may feel much more comfortable talking to me and telling me something
Well,
than you
I
would
can
that.
take that one step further for you. There's a service that I provide. It's called cooking therapy, and one of the bases is movement, and the movement is the process of cooking. So you're in constant motion in the kitchen. So you're not thinking about the conversation that we're having. It's easier for you to talk, and I'm right there with you. Movement does breed conversation, and it does allow people to let down their guard. It allows people to knock down those walls and speak freely. So yeah, I'm right there with you.
So I mean, I don't have a magic answer saying this is how we did. I think it's just people like you saying, I do mainly nutrition, but I'm getting my yoga certification. I'm promoting movement. People like me. I mean, there's people doing the work. There's people involved with the National Strength and Conditioning Association, one of my professional organizations, talking about long-term athletic development. We're teaching kids how to move. Um,
Yeah.
it's just
We
it's
have to do that. Our children in the United States, our children have the highest rates of obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes. All of these things are rising in children. And that's because of lack of movement, being stuck behind computer screens, being stuck behind TV, and not doing what we did as kids, outdoor activities.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's amazed me with this pandemic is, and you see this with adults, it's like, well, I haven't worked out because my gym's been closed, and I'm not exactly sure what to do. As you mentioned, there's a lot of information out there, but if we've been selling them, you have to go to the gym, you have to go to the gym, you have to go to the gym, rather than, hey, I'm going to go to my local park and they've got this parkour thing where you can do like the uneven bars. One of the things I did a few years ago with my, I had the good fortune to herniate a second disc in my lower back, which was not fun. But I realized that, my choices are aerobic things and my balance and things weren't that good. When I take my dogs to the park, if there's a guardrail, I walk across the guardrail. Now I'm very sensible and I make sure that the step off is not like a 30-foot cliff or something like that. As I mentioned a few segments ago, I'm building mountain bike trails on my property, and we've actually built a couple of little small teeter totters to ride on my
Right.
bicycle, and my girlfriend to ride on her bicycle. But the other thing that's kind of been fun with it is with my two dogs, I've taken my dogs over it too. So I think the big thing to get people more conscious and to move more is say, look, it should be fun. If it's not fun, you're not going to do it. How many people do you know there's like, man, I'm back from vacation, got to get back on the wagon and start working out again? It's like, no, you're going on vacation. It's like, what a great opportunity to try something new. You're going to the beach. Do you stand up paddleboard? Try stand up paddleboarding. They have things around the country that we did a couple years ago. We interviewed here in Pittsburgh. It's called Go Ape. It's a high ropes course.
Yes, they have one in Myrtle Beach and they have one in Florida as well. So
Yeah,
I know exactly what Go Ape is. I love it. It's the tree obstacle courses. Yes.
that's a great. I was trying to think how to describe it. And once you realize you're snapped in, once you realize if you fall, you're going to fall about a foot and be able to climb back up. It is an absolute blast, and it's like, it's nothing you're going to do yourself, but to do something like that, if
Yes.
you go someplace in the mountains and you're able to see something that's different, or try a different activity. I'm not thinking of what the name is, but I know in Colorado they have these courses where you clip in and you climb metal ladders and walk on trails where they're not dangerous, but you're up in the air. It's just like, try things new, and you never know where, maybe there's a yoga class out there that's going to be my new activity. I'm not saying I'm never going to go to yoga. I'm saying, I'm going to read the description really carefully. And if you say, well, it's going to be this, and this, and whatever, I'm going to go, well, I don't think that's for me. Like, I know guaranteed.
There are a lot of different types of yoga.
There are. And I'll confess, having lived in Georgia, Alabama, and Florida, I'm not a huge fan of hot weather. So the big thing in Pittsburgh
is hot yoga.
Hot yoga. It's like, yeah, no, I've lived that.
Yeah, see, I'm from Georgia, so I'm there with you. Like, me and my girlfriends, they were like, hot yoga. I said, yeah, but we can just go outside and do
exactly.
That. Yeah, I think that was something created in the North with people who are cold, because when you go outside in the South, you don't want to go inside to sweat.
They don't call it Hotlanta for nothing.
Thank you. Like, we were discussing it. I was like, I don't want to go indoors to do yoga. We can do hot yoga outside. It's 90 degrees out here. The humidity is at 90%. So.
And the scary thing about that is, having lived in Atlanta for a while, then gone to Alabama and gone down to Florida. When you've lived in Florida and then you go up to Atlanta, you're going, oh, this isn't too bad.
Right. I've done that. I lived in Miami for 2 years. And when I came back home to Atlanta, I was like, oh, I'm not going to complain. But I also lived in Vegas, too. I lived in Vegas for 15 years. So that's a different type of heat, but it's still hot.
Yeah, I don't care when they say it's a dry heat. I can turn on my convection oven and get the same effect.
Yes.
But
Did you know that the average person carries around 5 to 20 pounds of fecal matter in their intestines, depending on their diet? Some people are walking around feeling sluggish, constipated, unable to lose weight, skin issues, and allergies, all because of the toxins that are in their intestines. Listen, life gives us enough battles to fight. Your health shouldn't be one of those. If you change your mindset on how you actually view food, you will never have to worry about your health or weight again. I'm Ashley, owner of She Loves Wellness. I help people transition into a healthy lifestyle. I offer tips, recipe, and supplement kits to jumpstart your lifestyle change. Visit me on Facebook and IG at She Loves Wellness for your product information and samples. Don't forget, it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change.
So, Dr. Ben, tell me, what is it that you guys are doing new over in Pittsburgh? What are you guys doing towards the wellness and movement, the wellness and moving movement that you have?
Well, we have 2 podcasts. We have Moving to Live and FitLab Pittsburgh, or Fitness Lab Pittsburgh. And as I mentioned before we started recording, the reason we have 2 is we started the local one just because I had to learn how to use the equipment. And I know one of the complicated things with social media is people always say, well, where do I find stuff? And I tell people, for either Moving to Live or FitLab Pittsburgh, the easiest place to find us is on our FitLab Pittsburgh Instagram page, FitLabPGH, because anything that we're posting with podcasts for Moving to Live, we're reposting there. And we're also posting our FitLab Pittsburgh thing. But the thing that I'm most excited about, and I'll admit when we first started, I wasn't really, 3 times a week, we do 1-minute movement tip lifestyle hack videos. So we've got over 600 of them on a YouTube channel, but every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we post that on the FitLab Pittsburgh Instagram page. Just little 1-minute things. A lot of them take place in the woods or in the park with me walking my dog. So it may be dog health tips. It may be tips on, this is going to be surprising to some people, and other people are going to kind of wonder what's going on. One of our most popular videos was, we did a video, you don't wear underwear with bike shorts. Which is somebody who's biked for since, say, 1990. It's like, well, of course you don't. But the number of likes we got from that, some of it is just things like, in cold weather, how do you tell what clothing to wear? And it's really, I tell people, there's great movement tip, lifestyle hack tips. Or if you're really, it's like, yeah, I don't care about that. If you want to see a really cute black lab and a yellow lab doing funny things, then you can get your dog fix and your kind of relaxation fix just from that.
Your dogs are the star of your show.
Well, you say that and you think you're joking, but 2 times running with my dogs in the park over the past 2 years, I've heard people yell out my name and come up to me and say, "I recognize your dogs from Instagram." And I mean, to me, that's like, it's like, yes, because they are. I mean, my comment is dogs are not accoutrements, but you know what? FitLabPGH, Fitness Laboratory Pittsburgh is what it was, but I happened to have labs, and I mean, it must have been a subliminal
It
message.
works. It
It
works.
works, and the logo is a little Labrador. So if they get the props and you recognize them, it's like all the more power to you.
But you know what? That's a great idea because that brings people closer to movement. So as long as it works.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and the thing is, 1 minute, anybody can devote 1 minute. And I tell people with podcasts or those, anybody who does podcasting, this, if you get listeners who say, man, I liked 20% of the podcast episodes you put out or 20% of the movement tip lifestyle hacks, that's a win, because nobody's going to like everything they do. Or if they do,
Exactly.
you're going to go, wait, do I have a stalker?
You might.
I have dogs. They protect me. No, they're Labradors.
What's the biggest surprise you gotten in the past few months?
I'll give you two big surprises. My one big surprise is, like, I think in a positive way, is the people that you contact to appear on your podcast that are fairly big names that you think there's absolutely no way in the world that they'll get back to you. And they turn out to be absolutely some of the best interviews, the easiest to schedule, and the ones that you realize that, if I have a question, when you finish the interview and they say, hey, if you ever need anything else, don't hesitate to reach out to me.
I know. Those are the best interviews. They really are.
It's usually the people who's like, I'm just going to send a flyer and they're not going to respond. I think the thing that I've been most disappointed about is, I mean, I hate to focus on pandemics, but we are in the middle of one. It's just the amount of complaining that people have done. And I'm not talking about the people who have lost their jobs, or the people who are ill, but the people, it's like, well, I was supposed to go on vacation to St. Simon's Island. There's my little Georgia kid for you.
The petty,
and I can't go. It's like, I had a gentleman, a chiropractor that I see to help me with my back with exercises, who I also interviewed. And I remember when this first started, he said, I'm looking at this as it's going to happen. It's going to last 6, 12, 18 months, whatever it is. We said, I need to be able to handle this, because if I were diagnosed with cancer, this is the same sort of way that I would have to live my life. So if I can't handle this, and I think, everybody knows a big part of being successful with cancer is you have to have a positive mental outlook.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that's something there's some people there's some of the projects you've seen, it's like, wow, that's really good. But there's a lot of petty complaining and lack of resilience of realizing, my dad was a poli-sci major, and one of his comments was John F. Kennedy in one of his addresses said, life is not fair, and life isn't fair.
Well, see, the problem is, and I hate to say this in this way, we've become so accustomed to having things our way, so to speak, mm-hmm. that when it's time to actually adhere and think as a community and not as self, we forget that we're not the only people that are around. This is not our own personal little bubble. We actually share this space with millions of other people in this country, in this world. So you can't have a selfish attitude. And I get exactly what you're saying about the people who complain about the most frivolous and crazy things.
And I mean, I think with the podcasting, I mean, one of the things I had the opportunity to interview a physician who is Mexican, his nationality is Mexican. He's married to a Spanish lady. And when I interviewed him, they were in Spain, him, his wife, his young son, and his wife was pregnant. And literally they were in a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment where he went out once a week. And it's kind of like, okay, if you're complaining about A, B, C, D, and I'll admit, probably to friends, I did some complaining too. I don't want to say that I'm like this better than, But if you think about it, to talk to him and he's like, you know, he had a great attitude. He understood what it was. He's a cancer survivor. But it's like, you know, if you're complaining about the fact that you couldn't go out to your favorite bar or something like that, it's like,
Yeah, if you're complaining about bars and clubs, then your priorities are not in order. You've got some serious life checking to do.
yes.
And then those of us who complain about staying in your house, we have to look at this as a positive. I know a lot of people complained about this year being horrible, but why not look at it and see it as it being a reset for some of the things that we possibly needed to do? We are so intertwined into our phones and computers and things like that. This was an opportunity for us to be closer to our families, be closer to the people who are around us. This was also an opportunity for us business owners to actually sit down and recalibrate our businesses. So it wasn't a negative from my perspective. I was glad to be at home. As soon as they opened up the world, I had to get on a plane to fly to Texas. So, you know, I was happy not to be traveling as much and doing as much and going. So I just want to be healthy, and I want everybody around me to be healthy as well.
And I mean, it's you know, one of the things, if people ask me, you know, what was your big takeaway from this pandemic? I've lived in my current place for 11 years. And as I've mentioned a couple of times, you know, when this happened and we had the stay-at-home order, it's like, well, you know, I've been saying for 11 years, I'm going to cut walking trails and mountain bike trails on my property for 11 years.
And you finally did it.
And I finally did it. And I mean, every time I go out, you know, we call it the Reuter trails or the Grove. I mean, you just go there. We were out there doing a little work last week, and first thing we did is we spooked a turkey, which was a little scary. But 4 deer ran across, including 2 does or two fawns, and it's like it was just like, this is really, really peaceful. So, you know, the world is chaotic right now, you know, but I've created something that it's like, wow, I can go here. It's going to be peaceful and it's going to be fun. And I don't think I would have done it if I hadn't had the stay-at-home order, because I would have come up with an excuse to go somewhere or do something.
To go somewhere and do something. Yeah. But you forget that you can move right there on your property. So let me ask you this. What do you wish you known 10 years ago that you know now?
I wish I had started my podcasting 10 years ago. I did a small podcast literally starting about 10 years ago for one of my professional journals to interview an author. And I remember this was back when you had Skype and you kind of held the recorder up and recorded it over the phone. And I remember doing it, and every month that I did it, or every other month, because it was a bi-monthly journal, you know, I would be very nervous. I would have 5 or 6 questions. And I would I wouldn't be listening to the guest, to the author. I'd be concentrating. Okay, I got to get this next question in. And what I noticed since I started doing the podcasting is I'm much more comfortable having a conversation, whether it's with that author. So the podcasts that were for this journal that were maybe 5 or 6 minutes are now 15 or 20 minutes. Not because they're forced, but it's a natural conversation.
It's a natural conversation. It flows.
If you had told me I was going to get on a Zoom call with a total stranger, and you know, we would talk for an hour and 20 minutes, it's like, yeah, that's just not what I do. And you realize that there are all these people out there. You know, I've had the opportunity to interview, you know, a sleep researcher in Australia. Just the amazing, interesting people that doing the podcasting and having the ethos, movement as a lifestyle, not just an activity. You know, I tell people, you know, would I like to make this my only job and do it all the time? Yes. And, you know, and hopefully, or maybe with some luck and some hard work, that'll happen. But at the end of the day, if I'm still doing this and I'm just being on podcasts, talking about movement as a lifestyle and interviewing people, it's, you know, every person that I interview, you know, everybody has a story about how they got where they are. And people that you think, wow, they're just completely put together. When you get on a podcast with them and you find out, you know, they're a cancer survivor or they've got this chronic autoimmune disease, like, damn, I never knew that. To say nothing of the fact of people in my field that rather than hearing them at a conference, you know, I get to pick their brain for 50 minutes or an hour, ask the questions I want to be.
Yep.
And I wish I'd known that 10 years ago. I wish 10 years ago I said, I can do this. But I think everything happens at a specific time and for a specific reason. And I'm glad I decided to do it.
You have the time to do it. You have the purpose. You have the passion. It's all there for you. So, and like we tell our kids, and like I'm sure you tell the people that you teach, it's never too late to learn, and it's never too late to grow. So.
Well, there's one gentleman that I interviewed. And I'm going to butcher the way he phrased it, but he said, people look at it. You graduate from college and you have a career. It's like, no. Most people have 3 or 4 phases or 3 or 4 different careers.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it interesting. I think it's the opportunity for people to grow, and sometimes careers change and the things that you're doing in that career change. You realize, okay, it's time to make a change. And if you say, well, I'm a nutritionist, or I'm an exercise physiologist, or I'm a whatever it is, that you may be closing yourself up and missing out opportunities that maybe that's what you are, but there are all these other sub areas of things that you can do in addition.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. Mine was a transition. It really was. I went from being a chef to being a cooking therapist to being a holistic healthcare provider. So that was like, oh, okay, well, yeah. It was all along the same lines of food and nutrition, dealing with food, helping people with food, teaching people how to heal their bodies with food. But it was definitely a transition, and it's been 2 to 3 different careers over time. So I definitely get that statement. Now, this is our last question, and then we're going to wrap up the show, and I'm going to get you to tell everybody how to contact you. But first, let me ask you, if you could have a billboard with anything on it, what would it say and why?
This is going to seem self-serving. It's not meant to. It would say, movement is a lifestyle, not just an activity, because movement is part of what makes your life complete. Because everybody that I've known who's been happy all of their life has been somebody in some way or the other does regular movement. It may not be organized exercise. They may be physical labor. But everybody who, is successful as far as they enjoy their quality of life is a mover. So movement is a lifestyle, not just an activity, because movement is part of what makes your life complete.
I don't think that's self-serving at all. I think that's actually an excellent something to put on a billboard. It would actually probably motivate people to move a little bit more. But we are at the end of our show, and Dr. Ben, why don't you tell people how to get in touch with you? Now, we're gonna do an article on Dr. Ben on our website. We're gonna post all of his links and information there as well. But you can go ahead and let our listeners know right now how they can contact you, how they can hear your podcast, and if they wanted to book a session with you, how they could go about doing that.
Yeah, our podcasts are available on all of the variety of podcast things. But the easiest way, as I said, I think last segment, the easiest way to find out when new episodes come out or to find the initial one is FitLabPGH on Instagram. In actuality, if you search FitLabPGH or Fitness Lab Pittsburgh on Google, because of all the movement tip lifestyle hack videos, we're going to be like the first 15 hits. And that's going to give you the ability to see our movement tip lifestyle hack videos, see our FitLab Pittsburgh and Moving to Live podcasts, and it'll have information where you can direct message me on Instagram or FitLabPGH@gmail.com for direct email.
Okay, awesome. Well, guys, we are going to wrap up our show at this point. Dr. Ben, I want to thank you so very much for coming on. I am so grateful, and I love hearing the story of your journey. So, guys, thank you so much. This has been the 10 Dimensions of Wellness. I am your host, Cammie Red. You can hear us on Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, and a plethora of other platforms. We also air this on our YouTube channel, nriwellness.com. You can also find us on Facebook, 10 Dimensions of Wellness. We have a group. You can listen to any of our past shows, meet some of our guests there, and get tidbits of information from there as well. Thank you so much. Enjoy your evening and have a great night.
NRI Wellness brings you the latest health and nutrition information, creates customized nutrition programs, and walks you through the process to ensure your success.